What happens when a nation refuses to bend and a superpower threatens force? We're watching something extraordinary unfold. Nigeria, Africa's most populous country and largest economy, is standing firm against what President Trump has called a potential vicious military response. Now, let me be very clear about what's actually happening here, because the mainstream narrative misses the deeper currents at play. This isn't just another diplomatic spat or Twitter exchange. We're witnessing a fundamental shift in how middle powers are responding to American pressure in the post-unipolar world. Nigeria controls critical resources, oil, natural gas, rare earth minerals, that both Washington and Beijing desperately want to secure. But more importantly, Nigeria represents something larger: the African continent's growing refusal to accept the old rules of engagement. For decades, threats of military intervention were enough to bring governments into line. Not anymore. What we're seeing is the erosion of American coercive power, not through military defeat, but through the simple act of defiance by nations that have calculated they have more to lose by submitting than by standing firm. The question isn't whether Trump will follow through. It's what this moment reveals about the architecture of power in our changing world, and whether we're heading toward dialogue or devastation. Let me take you back to understand how we arrived at this dangerous precipice, because nothing in geopolitics happens in isolation. Nigeria's current standoff with Washington didn't begin with a single tweet or policy decision. This is the culmination of decades of accumulated grievances, broken promises, and a fundamental misreading by American policymakers of how the world has changed beneath their feet. You see, when I travel to Lagos or Abuja, when I sit down with Nigerian economists, civil society leaders, and yes, government officials, what strikes me most profoundly is not anti-American sentiment, though that certainly exists, but rather a deep sense of disappointment. Disappointment that the partnership they were promised never materialized. Disappointment that despite being told democracy and free markets would bring prosperity, what they got instead was structural adjustment programs that gutted their social services, trade deals that favored American corporations over Nigerian workers, and a security partnership that seemed far more interested in establishing military bases than actually addressing the terrorism that plagued their northern regions. Now, Trump's threat of what he termed a vicious military response didn't emerge from nowhere. It came after Nigeria made a series of decisions that Washington found intolerable. First, there was Nigeria's deepening economic cooperation with China. We're not talking about small-scale trade here. We're talking about massive infrastructure investments, railways, ports, refineries, telecommunications networks, the kind of transformative projects that Nigeria had been asking Western partners to fund for generations. When those